Welcome everyone to today's webinar titled For Bad or Good, How AI Can Be Used to Attack or Defend Your Payments. This is Brian from Strategic Treasurer, and we're pleased you could join us as we discuss the dangers and advantages of AI in payments. Our speakers for today are Shai Gabay, co-founder and CEO of Trustmi, Wayne Lawrence, Senior Vice President of Data Platforms Global Information Technology at Colgate-Palmolive, and Craig Jeffery, Founder and Managing Partner of Strategic Treasurer. Welcome, Shai, Wayne, and Craig, and I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you join us for your morning or your afternoon, depending on where you're logging in from. Shai and Wayne, good to be on this discussion and webinar with you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Well, let me go through our agenda quickly. We've got 4 hours worth of material to plug into 30 minutes, so we'll move briskly. So our agenda, what's the situation, the AI for bad and good? AI is used not just for some of the most recent things of deep fake to convince people to make changes, but even from changing and updating the language that's used in business email compromise or ways to approach things. So there's the use of AI for bad, but AI, artificial intelligence, is also used for good, to prevent, to detect, and to provide more security. There's opportunities for fraud because there's so many vulnerabilities in most payment processes from start to finish. We'll look at the end-to-end process and identify some of those areas that criminals are taking advantage of. So we'll look at that. And then we'll emphasize the good part about how AI can help protect our payments. And while we don't have a dedicated slide to our key takeaways or final thoughts, we'll be discussing those throughout today's presentation. So let's get into things. The payment landscape has changed a lot. Many of you on the business to consumer side or the individual payment side are making many more payments. You can think of all the different apps you use for that, the increase in that. It's become extremely easy to make payments, to settle up. On the business side, there has certainly been some changes, but it tends to follow some traditional methods. The criminals have been taking advantage of those. So on the business side, there's a lot of reliance on manual handoffs and manual work. There's opportunities to inject criminals to inject into part of the process by convincing people or capturing information. I want to just point out a couple things on this data here. This is from a recent survey on AI and generative AI, and the blue sections are those companies or percentage of companies that are using AI. The top one's about cash flow forecasting. That's being used quite heavily with expectations that it's well above 50% within 2 years. And the bottom two are related to payments, fraud detection and prevention. This idea of using a good AI to help it, and we'll be talking about that with some experts on it. And then the other one's about smart payments and settlements, still quite large. So Wayne, just want to bring you in on this. As we think about generative AI technologies, what are some of the technologies with AI or use cases that's impacting the finance industry?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's so much going on in this space today, and some of the key things in Gen AI, like natural process languaging and even reinforcement training, is creating a huge opportunity in the finance space. And when you look at kind of the overarching end-to-end payment process and all that, which is complex in itself, there's a lot that's going on in terms of streamlining that end-to-end, utilizing artificial intelligence and helping to drive efficiency there. We're using it to help kind of do things around analyzing spend habits and how our customers are actually interacting with us from a payment standpoint, who's paying on time, maybe paying late and so forth, and trying to interact with them more proactively without having to get people engaged in that. And also, we're seeing it with helping with the reconciliation process. And helping to doing the matching process much more efficiently and more effectively through some of these AI tools. But as you noted earlier, there is a lot of concerns there around how do we ensure that we're not getting fraudulent actors coming in and trying to impact the way we handle the payment process. And we're seeing things that, people are trying to get in and manipulate, either some of the AI models that we have there or coming in with, other AI tools that seem to be getting more sophisticated day and day to try to compromise us. And hence, we're looking at ways to try to effectively combat that. Again, using AI on top of that to try to manage it. But we do see this as something that is really driving opportunity for the finance community. But at the same time, we're keeping our eye out because there are a lot of fraudulent players out there that are trying to compromise us and take advantage of some of those loopholes in the systems.
Yeah, excellent. So that was a nice review of where AI plays in across the board and with payments as well. On this slide, we've got the bad and the good, right? The pessimistic and the optimistic. The criminals are using it to gain knowledge, take that information, and launch it against companies to steal funds. On the good side, the business side, some of the tools and examples that you shared. Any other comments, Wayne? I can bring Shai in as well, but anything else here on AI for bad and AI for good?
Yeah, on the bad side, we're seeing fraudulent players getting really sophisticated in duplicating or mimicking, invoices that are coming through and trying to kind of get funding diverted from the true vendor we should be paying and routing that to them. At the same time, we're seeing them also be creative with generative AI and kind of creating fraudulent voices or even video and interacting with some of the call centers and trying to get funds diverted, playing the role of the vendor or even internal, executives and trying to get funding routed that way. So, I mean, they're being very creative these days in trying to, infiltrate us, infiltrate companies in general and try to move funds around. And that's something that's a little bit scary these days. And trying to combat that, especially if you don't have the right tools and technology in place to do it from a manual standpoint, is almost impossible because a lot of folks can't really differentiate between sometimes what is real and what is fake.
That differentiation too. It's if you have 1,000 items and you're saying I have to review every single one, it might be nice to have some sort of calibration or ordering of what's the most risky to what appears to be the most safe. That's a way to focus, and AI helps on that. Yeah, gone are the days of emails from some prince somewhere who says, I want to mail you money, just, send some stuff over, poorly written, like they typed with their elbows. Now everything's written in better prose than we come up with. So there's some real challenges there.
It used to be that you can somewhat kind of detect because either there's spelling errors or little things, but now with the generative AI and all that, they're getting even better. And so now you really got to investigate every document coming in. And to your point, if I've got, hundreds of documents coming through as an individual, there's no way I'm going to be able to detect whether there's something coming in fraudulent the way they've improved in how they're sending some of these fraudulent documents across. So it is becoming a challenge.
Excellent. Anything else that you wanted to say on this slide, or Shai too? You can jump into if there's any further comments here. All right. Going to move. Shai, I want to get you involved in this discussion as well. So, criminals, bad actors, however you want to call them, they're leveraging AI to attack businesses, as we saw on the left-hand side of the previous screen. Maybe you could talk through some of those methods, either using this slide or just some of the use cases you've seen.
Sure. Thank you, Craig. And I totally agree with Wayne about what he speak about, how we saw the acceleration and all of that. But I think that we need to step back for a second to understand why it's become so big problem. So at the end of the day, if you think about the B2B payment process, it's a very complex process. It's involved a lot of different people inside and outside the organization most of the communication is based on email as the source of truth, although it's the most vulnerable channel exists today. And then you have a lot of different systems involved. You have procurement, vendor onboarding, portals, ERPs, the payment itself. And each one of them are siloed and at the end, manual validated. So it's like a very comprehensive process that each part of the organization doing their own thing, but no one really connect the dots to make sure that the process itself was impactful. And that's exactly why the attacker exploited it so easily. Because for them to be able to create very tailor-made email with ChatGPT that don't going to have any barrier of language or spellings, or they will have the right context and they can do that at scale so easily. And then deepfake. I guess most of you already hear about the case with the CFO fraud. Basically, someone impersonated the CFO, asked one of the employees in Hong Kong to join a call, and basically asked to wire 5 different instructions, and they lost $25 million, just like that. So the sophistication, it's only in the beginning. And I think that we saw a lot of those already. But again, the most common scenario will be classic business email compromise. Basically, one of your suppliers will be compromised because it's much easier to go after your suppliers than going after your organization. And at the end, they will ask you to change bank details. And it's a classic case that happened to Google and Facebook. One of their suppliers in Taiwan was compromised. They asked them to change the bank details and they lost $100 million, just like that.
That's going to leave a mark. I liked your point too about the leveraging, more increased sophistication at scale, right? The leveraging of automation means everyone can be subject to it. So some great points. I wanted to spend a little bit of time, Shai, talking about how, technology improves, AI improves, criminals improve their attacks. And so you train AI on sets of data, you guide AI, you guide technology. How will this change as Gen AI, continues to grow and the tools are available and the tools get better?
I think that at the end of the day, we need to understand it's not only tools or technology, it always process, technology, and what you do, right? So what the attacker exploiting, it's not only the technology, it's the process itself and how it's working. And what you can see here is a real example, and basically that happened. What happened in that specific case, this is a cyber criminal groups that working only on big payouts, not small. So they look to compromise organizations, suppliers. They are looking for big invoices. At that specific case, they find an invoice of $2 million that was due to pay the same month. And then they start to build the attack infrastructure. So first thing they did, they wanted to create impersonation. So they register a lookalike domain very similar to the supplier name. So instead 1L, double L. Of course, no one will not notice that. But now the attacker become much more sophisticated. They know what is the controls that exist today in the organization. And one of the most common control that we hear a lot, we are doing a bank account validation, okay? So in that specific case, what the attacker did, they leveraged the document they found and all the detail they found in those emails, and they leveraged that to open a legitimate bank account with the same company name, same beneficiary, but just different location. So now they have everything that they need to steal the organization funds. So basically the next thing they do, they took the last email communication with all the details and reply all using the lookalike domain. At that point, no one concerned anything. The company feel they are communicate with the right vendor that they are working in the last 3 years. The goods was delivered. Everything is good. Now, another most common control that we hear a lot. Okay, so if someone going to ask you to change the bank details, of course we're going to validate it. What's the best way to validate? Fallback procedure. So in that case, we saw a lot of ways the data can overcome it, more advanced deepfake calls, but more commonly, simple social engineering. So what they did in this specific case, they sent a new email saying, our main contact person, he left the company, he retired. Please update the new contact details. Now, everyone concerned about changing bank details. How many are you concerned when someone asks you to change their contact details? Now, 2 weeks later, basically what happened is that They asked to change the bank details, and you can probably guess the rest of the story. In that case, the accounting lady followed the procedure. She wanted to the master data, that was the updated number, and she called that. Of course, that was the fault zone. By the way, in that specific organization that they have a very strict process, it wasn't only the ability to call back. They also asked for a bank letter approval. They also asked for a new invoice with the new bank details. And they even did a small amount transfer to verify that everything is legit. And only after all of that happened, they approved the payment. So you can see the attacker exploit in various ways, and they're doing small changes that, especially on the volume, it's very hard, even impossible, to be able to detect with manual controls and processes.
Yeah, excellent example, or bad example, whatever you want to refer to it as. I think this, discussing greater sophistication, this also brought in that what's fairly new, really, probably the last 4 years, we've seen criminals trying to remove security defenses, right? So if the defense is you call the person, okay, so now I change the person. Now when I call the person, so I sidestep it. If I can remove the layer, now I can get to the core and make that change. And it's they're getting really good at that in a number of areas, not just with invoices, but with even bank security features. So vigilance is critical. That brings us to our first poll question. I think we have some stacked here. Our first and only opportunity for poll questions. We're combining it onto one slide. What you can do, you can see how to fill it out in the chat box. There's 3 stacked questions. They're all select one that applies. First one is, I'm using AI tools for business. I'm piloting or experimenting. I'm using it for real work, or no. If you're doing piloting and real work, select real work. The second is, my view on AI is that there is much promise, much hype, some promise, some hype. We made it as a single choice. I know that could be double, but that's what we'll pick from. And then finally, what's your current and planned use of AI in fraud detection and prevention? So there's a couple options there. Give everybody a chance to enter those options and hit submit. Now, instead of typing poll, you can type, if we have, let's just say 140 people type the word Trustmi, Trustmi, or Trustmi, Trsume, whatever works, or poll. Either one will work. If we get 100 and I think I said 140, we'll share the 3 poll results when we send this information out there. That'll be fun. So maybe people will learn how to spell the company name. How about that, Shai? All right, excellent. So it's popped up. I think we have a few moments we can go through this. So real work, a little bit higher than average, right? 16%. Pilot experiment, another 28%, and a little over half not using it. Any comments on the second one? My view on AI is that there's much promise. That's almost half. And some promise, 35%. So we're at 78%. Does that sound about right based on how either of you are talking to people?
Yeah, a lot of the folks, at least I talk in my industry and my peers, they see a lot of promise within the space. They're either using it internally for a lot of to try to help streamline and drive some efficiencies, but definitely I see, as I talk to some of the CISOs, they're looking at ways to incorporate this to help even them be more proactive and also cut down their time in trying to do some of this investigation and figure out where things are happening so they can actually strengthen their security protocols within their own practices. So there's a lot of hope and promise that there's more to come to help drive this, though they're also concerned about the attackers are also getting much more intelligent and also getting much more advanced. So trying to keep up with the pace is the challenging part.
It's an arms race in the security war, and how do you stay current? Shai, this last one, I think you'll be pretty happy since that is what you sell. No plans to use or unsure, 38%, but so we've got 62% that either use it, plan to use it within a year, We get over 50% within 2 years based on this data. So maybe by the end of the webinar, we'll be able to see if there's more reason to use this type of technology. All right, so yeah, let's continue our discussion as we move on. There's a couple data points here. I don't want to belabor them because you'll get this deck to look at. But from business email compromise at 78% to payment diversion at 47%, the key thing here is these methods of attack don't go away. They might dip down a little bit and then they come back again because criminals adapt. They're not going to go, oh, you've ruined my business. They're going to use whatever they can to strengthen things. So we see more methods of attacks, more types of attacks, more combination and added sophistication in how they're attacking. And then, like to Shai's point, and the other aspect of it is it's done at scale. They're leveraging automation to find more people and to attack more. So they're becoming efficient. So there's a lot there. So this value and sophistication is huge. So there's also a report here you can download from our site if you're interested in getting more of that information. So I'll bring it back to you, Wayne. So, if we think about how we protect things, there might be services, there might be features. The power of a network, is what you can do on a network. How big is the network? What are the functions that can be done here? And that applies to a payment process. So how are people using networks or platforms to secure the B2B payment space, the whole supply chain, to protect against cyber attacks, spoofing, theft of money? What do you see here? What do you think here?
Yeah, on our end of the spectrum, what we've been looking at are solutions that are kind of evaluating activity as it's happening in real time. You can't do this as a post evaluation. You need something going in there that's looking at as the transactions are happening, as the interaction is happening. It's constantly evaluating and referencing and figuring out exactly, are we talking to authentic players? And a couple of things that we've been looking at and kind of aligned with some of the things that Trustmi offers is this whole crowdsourcing piece of it, right? And how we're looking at comparatives to see exactly are we talking to somebody that's true, and can we leverage a lot of the data we have to kind of create this fingerprint to identify an individual and tie to all the interactions we had with that individual to say, as new information is coming in, does that new information that we're getting from a player match the criteria of what we've been interacting with over a period to the history? So we can see whether or not, the way this actor is coming in, yep, it looks like the credentials look the same, the way they talk, the way they interact, the documents, the certain characteristics that help us further validate that we're actually talking to an accurate vendor or supplier with us. And if someone is coming in trying to personate that, we can try to at least capture. Now, we may get some false positives along the way, but I'd rather have those false positives and reconfirm than to have more go through and wind up getting hit at the tail end and creating more problems for us, not just from a financial standpoint, but also from a branding standpoint. So, companies like Trustmi that offer these ability to not just take a look at how your transactions are working, but also create that unique fingerprint of evaluating your historical interactions with your suppliers and vendors, looking at your data in real time and matching it up against that. And with the introduction of also crowdsourcing, I think all of that plays a role in helping to be more proactive around finding it. And again, the real-time aspect of it is critical.
Yeah, if the attackers use AI, so should the defenders. If the attackers share information and pool information together in criminal networks, so too should those who defend use and leverage some of these powerful items. Really, really good comments, Wayne. That was excellent. As we, oops, did I shift too fast? Did I get to? Yeah. So I guess we're still on the I'm so eager to advance the slides. I'm getting ahead of myself. We compressed a couple of the slides together. So, Shai, I want to bring you in on this too. You provide a solution, but the real question here is what do you think are the key factors that people should consider when evaluating AI solution for payment security, particularly in the B2B space? Well, specifically in the B2B space, what is essential? What do you consider like the top items for people in their evaluation of this?
Thank you for the question. So I must say that before we started the company, we did long market validation. We spoke with a lot of finance people, and we learned a lot from that process. And based on that, we define what's crucial to our perspective. We believe that first, most of the finance people has very bad experience with technology. So the first thing, you need to have a technology that can work for you. Frictionless deployment, not 2 years deployment project, something that can really work. Second, easy of use and accuracy. You care for the bottom line. You don't want to be bombarded with a lot of alerts and false positive. You want something that will tell you exactly what you need and take the decision. And last but not least, streamline. No one willing to change the way that they do business, even for security. So it's need to be your process, your way, and the solution need to be able to tie it to that and to be able to really protect it, but proactively. It doesn't, if you can catch the mistake or the fraud after effect, it doesn't help. It's going to be very hard to get the money back. So I think that those are the most important part. And just to add, those type of solution need to show real ROI. It's need to show really reducing risk or human errors and efficiency.
Yeah, great. Now we don't have a key takeaway slide. We're going to stay on this particular slide. I'd like each of you to comment on, there's a lot of changes, just as background, there's a lot of changes in how criminals are attacking and how we're defending payments. What do you see happening? What do you see evolving or changing within finance related to B2B payments, and maybe even a bias towards security? Let's go with Wayne and then Shai.
Yeah, I would say, look, I see it, AI playing in it, AI advancing in this space for finance. Finance will become more and more dependent on AI to help streamline, especially as companies are, maximizing their resources, right? And more is coming in, they're going to need the AI to help them with creating capacity so that their folks can do more, because not a lot of companies are hiring more and more people in, but they're trying to manage them most that they can with who they have. And so AI is really going to be critical. I think with that being said, to kind of Sai's point earlier, I think it's going to be important that we have those right continuous monitoring tools to help evaluate how the AI, which is running those automated processes, is also doing the right checks and balances against those actors that are coming in, because we won't necessarily have people looking at those things every day. The other piece is that, the technology in itself that's helping them also needs to be adaptive, in the sense of it needs to be able to evolve as also the criminals are evolving, so that it understands the variations of type of attacks that are coming in, so that it also can help us be more protective about the data that we're processing within the payment space. So there's a lot of benefits and a lot of advantages that's going to bring to the finance community in itself to help make them more efficient. But there's a lot of work that the security teams and the finance need to put in place to ensure that all of this monitoring is there, considering there'll be less people looking at it, more systems kind of running on its own, and we'll need those technologies out there to help cover that for them and help alert them ahead of time so that we're safe and that we're sure that we're not compromising, our financials, as well as I said before, our branding.
Excellent. And Shai?
So I think I would say two things. First, at the end of the day, AI should be a decision supportive tools. It's not going to replace the people. It's going to help them to take the smart decision, to be able to mitigate those risks. And not all automation is good, because a lot of the time, if you do full automation, you basically take all your controls and deduct it. So that's the first thing. Second, I think that at the end of the day, you cannot compete with machines. Meaning, if the attacker uses an AI to their advantage, you need to use AI to your advantage. It's always a cat and mouse game, but you need to have the right balance.
Yeah, this escalating battle, escalating use of these tools in the fraud world. Thank you, Shai. Thank you, Wayne. Excellent points. Thanks everybody for listening. We're so glad you're here. We just have a couple more. Brian has just a few things to close out our discussion. Thanks for your time. And Brian?
Thank you everyone for joining us today. The CTP and FP&A credits, today's webinar slides, and a recording of today's webinar will be sent to you within 5 business days. And for more on AI in Treasury, be sure to download the Generative AI in Treasury and Finance Survey Report by clicking the link in the chat box. Thank you, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.